Did the producers of Dance Moms go too far in order to make the most dramatic storylines they possibly could? There have been plenty of accusations over the years that seem to suggest that the producers cared more about the show's ratings than the safety of the cast.
Never, ever, ever trust a reality show producer.
Welcome back to my series, Dance Moms Uncovered. When cast members were in vulnerable states and struggled with being filmed, production never saw this as a reason to stop filming. Kalani has outright stated that production didn't care if she cried or had panic attacks. And recently, Kelly has shared that production never stepped in, even when Paige had a panic attack that lasted hours. Kelly claims that on that day she tried to take her daughter into the bathroom and called Lifetime to ask for a 5-minute break from filming, but they refused to let the Highlands have it, saying that they can film whatever they want.
Having a panic attack before you go on stage wasn't really talked about, and no one on the show honestly really cared. Like the producers and stuff, they don't care. It actually looks better if I go and I cry and have a horrible day because that's great for TV, right?
This was hours of like panicking. Yeah, I tried to take her in the bathroom and I called Lifetime and was like, can you just give her 5 minutes to compose herself? Like she's 11, 12 years old. Like give her 5 minutes to just get herself together and we'll come back in. And they were like, nope. You sign up for a reality show, we can film whatever we want.
And the kids weren't the only ones that were filmed during vulnerable moments. Christi and Kelly recall that production filmed the Dance Moms Chatter special with them over an 8-hour shoot. By the end, they had finished an entire bottle of vodka. They say that immediately after filming this, they were whisked away to film some interviews while still drunk. If true, production probably made them do this in the hopes that they would blurt things out that they wouldn't normally say. Between seasons 7 and 8, one of the producers, Bryan, visited Abby in hospital while she was undergoing cancer treatment. He used his phone to film her 3 to 4 days a week. It would be one thing if she asked him to do it, but she was still under contract with the network and may not have had a choice.
When we're in our interview and you have on the dress, you have on a dress in an interview. Yeah. You never really wore a dress in an interview. We always saved our dresses.
No,
you wore
I think that dress was from the reunion.
No. What that dress was from was when we filmed that drinking party show with Jeff, that we drank that giant bottle of vodka in one sitting. I was like, oh my God, because if you see these clips, we did a ton of pickups in those outfits because they took us from set, put us in a set to do pickups. And I know this because I was so drunk.
I could tell I was drunk during interviews too.
And I knew that I probably shouldn't be doing it. Number one, in the hospital, you're not really supposed to be shooting that stuff. And then like, is Abby really going to be okay with it? And she was out of it.
And he did.
I did. We spent like 8 months in the hospital. Like, I would go probably 3 or 4 days a week. I wouldn't shoot every time, but I would have my cell phone. And we would do a lot of interviews, or I would get a lot of real stuff that was happening.
The producers also had specific techniques that they would use to make the cast fight and maximise the on-screen drama. For instance, Christi accused Bryan of telling guests to go after her and Kelly because he knew that they were the best at playing into the drama. Christi and Kelly both say that they would try to avoid eye contact with the producers while other people were fighting, because otherwise producers would signal for them to get involved. Holly, on the other hand, has claimed that she was told not to interfere because she would often resolve fights before any major drama occurred.
Every time someone new came on, you would eat them up and spit them out. Like,
you told everybody to come after us. I feel like if you would have caught any producer's eye, they would have been like, say something. And then you would have been in the middle of it.
Exactly.
So you were like, I'm going to keep my eyes down. I'm going to mind my business.
I was told several times not to interfere in certain things, like with certain fights, because I would diffuse situations and that they had to see how things played itself out.
Ashlee has alleged that the producers would text her and the other mums, prompting them with ideas of what they should fight about. And Kendall claims that the producers would pull cast members aside, telling them that if they don't fight back, they won't be paid.
Like, would the producers give you a specific thing to fight about? Or like,
oh
what?
my gosh, so they're texting you while you're sitting there.
Oh, I forgot about that. They would text you guys.
Prompt.
I remember that.
But the producers would come in and pull us aside one by one and be like, okay, so we're going to manipulate this situation to where Abby starts yelling at you and then you have to react or you're not going to get paid. So like if our moms didn't fight back or start arguments, they'd basically like hang a paycheck in our faces
Oh,
and be
wow.
like, you're not going to get paid if you don't do this.
The casters also had a lot to say about how the producers mishandled the physical altercation between Kelly and Abby. Kelly states that at most competitions, there would be a security guard in the green room in case their fights got physical. But she says that in New York, production took him out of the room. And yet they did have people who were waiting outside the room, ready to escort Kelly outside after the fight. Christi adds that production smuggled the footage that was filmed that day out of the building and sent it away so that the police couldn't take it from them or use it as evidence in a court.
But usually there's a guy in the room, like a security guard or whatever,
who will jump in.
And they had him out of the room that day. And as soon as it happened, like, there was a van outside waiting for me to, like, leave the premises. Like, they knew something was happening.
Everyone was rushing to pull the tapes and get them sent. Literally, they like threw all the tapes in a package, and like they had a PA leave before the cops arrived, so if the cops asked for them, they could be like, we don't have it.
Then there are the broken promises and deceitful actions that production would use to get what they wanted on film. Right from the beginning, Christi remembers Bryan assuring her that her interview in the gold chair that was filmed for the sizzle reel would never see the light of day. Needless to say, this promise wasn't kept. She also remembers being assured that when they arrived at the Candy Apples for the Beef Jerky commercial shoot, she would have time to do Chloe's hair and makeup. And yet when she arrived, they rushed her preparation, likely in the hopes that Chloe would look unprepared and messy.
I remember when we were doing the first interview, I was sitting in that ugly gold chair.
I love it.
And
Big old flower on your...
Big old flower. And I said,
something crazy on.
Some weird shit. And I said, Bryan, close the door. I don't want anyone to hear what I'm saying. Yeah. And then you put that in the commercial for the first episode. I almost died when I saw that. I was like, you said no one would ever see that. I was assured because Chloe showed up with no hair and makeup. And I was like, dude, am I going to have time to like put some makeup on her? And they're like, yes, we're going to give you plenty of time. I had 5 minutes to get her in that suit and get her out there. They did not want her hair and makeup done at all.
Kelly insists that production assured her that they would send someone to get stoppers for Paige's chair in season 2. And by the time she realised that they had lied to her, she wasn't allowed to leave set to go buy them herself.
I was not allowed to take it home.
I think
I'm like, I have to have the stoppers on it and I have to have it painted. They said a PA was going to do it.
Yes.
They
I was just going to say that.
A PA was going to do it. And when I showed up the next day, the first thing I did when I walked in was check to make sure if the chair was done, and it wasn't.
Correct.
So that's why I started painting it with a marker.
Yep.
And I was not allowed to leave to go buy stoppers.
Elliana says that in season 8, the producers told her and Yolanda that they were good to film. They then proceeded to hide Elliana's work permit, creating extra drama and forcing Yolanda to film alone. Christi and Kelly recalled that there was a mum who would refuse to say things that the producers wanted them to say. The producers would then have that mum look into the camera and say, "I'm not saying," followed by the phrase that they wanted them to say. They would then cut that first part out, leaving only what they wanted them to say in the first place.
I was told that she was good to go with all of her, but they hid my work permit for extra drama.
Sometimes they would give a pickup of something that they would want someone to say. I'm not going to say what mom it was, but a mom would be like, I'm not saying that. And there was one mom in particular that they would say, okay, that I need you to look into camera and say, I'm not saying, and then say what the pickup is so they have it.
And then they would just cut the I'm not saying off
and then they would have the pickup.
Unfortunately, on the set of a reality show, nothing is ever private, even when it's in the cast's best interests to keep certain information off television. Abby claims that producers constantly told the cameramen to film in her personal space, including her hotel rooms, her bedroom, and her dressing room.
And they were told by producers, go in there and get that shot, go into her dressing room, go into her bedroom, go into her hotel room, and get that shot, get that shot, get that shot.
Production also made the girls discuss deeply personal family issues on camera. In season 6, the producers wanted Ashlee and Bryn to talk about Ashlee's divorce proceedings and the custody battle she was engaged in with her ex-husband. Bryn became understandably upset about discussing the issue on camera, and production edited the footage in a way that Bryn says made the audience think that she was being bratty. Christi has also claimed that once, while she was at a lunch with Kathy and Vivi, the producers were hounding her to bring up Vivi's adoption. At the time, Vivi didn't know that she was adopted, and thankfully, Christi refused to discuss it in front of her.
And then there's an interview where you're trying to talk to me because the producers are like, you two need to have a talk in the parking lot about what's going on this week, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know. I wasn't really sensitive to it, but I didn't care and I didn't want to talk about it. And so it totally made me look like a brat. Like I'm in the parking lot looking at the floor and my mom's like trying to talk to me and I just won't talk. Like I literally wouldn't talk about it.
When we were all out eating lunch and they kept hammering you, open up about Vivi, and Vivi had no idea at the time that she was adopted, and I wanted that to be very organic, and I used to say, that's my reality. It's not the world's reality.
Production had specific instructions and rules that they made the cast follow in order to achieve the storylines that they wanted. Bryan admits that ahead of each season, he and the other producers would plan out the arcs that each cast member would follow. Ashlee says that production would pull her aside each morning to make sure that she was hitting all of the story beats that they gave her.
You do a lot of interviewing with the cast and you really try to figure out what's going on with them that's real. And you try to predict what their series arcs are going to be, you know?
For each person,
like, what
for
is
each
going to
cast
be
member.
yeah.
I mean, I'd walk in the morning and the producers would like ambush me, like 3 of them. We need this and we need this and we need to have a good week this week.
Yolanda recalls that at the beginning of each day, production would take the cast's car keys, which ensured that the cast couldn't leave the studio without permission. Melissa says that production used to make the mums put their phones on speakerphone so that everyone could hear what they were talking about. She says that if they tried to make private phone calls, they wouldn't be allowed to use their phones at all.
Something that a lot of people don't know is our car keys were taken in the beginning of when we would arrive on set.
Car keys are taken.
So you can't
just jump in your car and leave.
So we couldn't just leave.
Every time we got a phone call, they said we had to put on speakerphone or we couldn't take the call.
Kira says that even in Australia, the producers tried to control their kids' schooling. She claims that the producer Scott said that it didn't matter if their kids fell behind on their schoolwork, because child labour laws and school laws didn't apply when travelling internationally.
Our kids hadn't done school in 3 days, and they're just getting further and further and further behind. And I know how this is going to work out when we get home. I'm like, this is wrong. And they're like, we're in a different country. We don't have to apply the school laws as we do in the US.
So what do you guys think? Do you think the producers were very strategic and deliberate in everything they did? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.